Mrs. America on FX. Phyllis, our girl Phyllis, Dave. Um, yeah, so we spoke about the first episode of Mrs. America. Actually, first couple of episodes, because I think they dropped the first three altogether, or at least within a couple of days.
Yeah, they did on Hulu.
And I think we were just really impressed with the cast telling the story of the fight for the ERA and the two opposing sides of it, kind of exposing details of the story that I think a lot of people probably were not aware of. And I felt like that kept up throughout the series. I felt like the series was really well done. I do think there were a couple of moments at the end that I found to be peculiar choices, and kind of left me wanting a little bit more, feeling a little bit confused. But overall, I was really impressed with this miniseries. And Kate Blanchett and Rose Byrne and Sarah Paulson, all I thought gave I actually think everybody else in this gave phenomenal performance. So nothing really too bad to say about it. How are you feeling about Mrs. America?
Yeah. So 9 episodes later, obviously I think it's a complete success. And the obvious flags that people wave in the beginning about the show having this loaded cast playing all these famous historical figures, that hype was worth it because, as you said, everyone is really good. And the way this show is structured, we're basically covering the whole 70s, but we're going to these little flashpoints in all these major figures' lives and their roles in the movement and in terms of the women's liberation movement in the 70s. And while I've seen criticism that we got too much Phyllis Schlafly, why couldn't we get more of some of the other people? I really enjoyed how it was structured, and here's the Gloria Steinem focused episode, here's the Bella Abzug episode at the end, the Shirley Chisholm episode. It seemed to really get into what all these people were doing and what made them so different, and ultimately uniting history with drama on TV. It's not new, but having it be, I think, this educational and entertaining is really impressive. This is definitely a show that inspires people to go on Wikipedia or just go on Slate and read about what's being portrayed episode to episode. For sure. I think that's easier said than done. You think of stuff like American Crime Story, for example, has lent a lot to that. FX in general was really good for this. But I think one of the underrated aspects is that when you're portraying feminism and the feminist movement, it's not a united front the whole time, right? They get into how Betty Friedan was not as sympathetic to the plight specifically of lesbians in feminism, and how there's a lot of intersectionality and a lot of conflict within certain movements. That is not a new idea. That's still the case today with stuff. And I think the way they highlighted that, again, through history, was really effective. And when you're doing it with amazing attention to period detail, really impressive makeup and hairstyling, and great actors, what's not to like?
Yeah, I beyond the acting being really, really good, just seeing what the real life people looked like and compared to how they were made up in the show was just really impressive. I mean, obviously, I think Phyllis Schlafly got a bit of a glow up. I think most people played by Kate Blanchett are going to get a bit of a glow up in that sense. But Margot Martindale playing Bella Abzug, I felt like they looked very similar. And Margot Martindale, one of the best female character actors,
absolutely fantastic in this.
Actors in general. She was just great. I thought Elizabeth Banks was good when she got some time to shine, and kind of I loved her showdown with Phyllis, and kind of how she, I think, brought to light the hypocrisy in Phyllis's message. And I thought they did a really good job of using some of the characters that were written into the show, like Alice McRae, Sarah Paulson's character, to highlight the personal damage that this message had, and Phyllis's drive to gain political power and sway had on the people around her. I think my one critique, and I agree with your point about I guess pilot episodes or the focused episodes on each character worked really well. I wish that Sarah Paulson's episode had come a little bit sooner, because I
Hmm.
felt like it coming so close to the end of the series and not being about an actual person who was really at the forefront of this fight, and more of like
Right.
a fictionalized character, kind of made it feel like we got to the end too quickly. Like I wanted a little bit
Hmm.
more time in those last couple episodes to focus on the other, what was going on with the other characters. But it may have also been just that, kind of like the end credits said, or like the post credits said,
Hmm.
the sway of the women's empowerment movement was never stronger than it was in the early 70s. And the time frame that they're portraying Sarah Paulson's episode, I believe, is like mid 70s to late 70s. So maybe there
Yeah.
just was less story to tell with all these characters as they moved on to different ventures in their life. But overall, I thought this was really well done. Any particular episodes that stood out to you or that you just really liked?
Oh, interesting. I thought the Shirley Chisholm episode was great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh,
That's one of the
Shirley.
ones I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these people, they're such titans, right? I mean, I really liked Ari Gaynor playing Brenda Fagan when we see her
Yeah.
to debate with her husband, but also, getting into, I think, another alleyway within feminism
Mm-hmm.
and what was like at that time in terms of sexuality and monogamy and stuff like that. I like the Betty Friedan episode. I think Tracy Ullman did a really great job. And when we have the debate with Phyllis again, which really
Mm-hmm.
happened, you can see a different debate of theirs on YouTube right now, not the one we saw on TV. Um, the way I think the way this a lot of these characters were able to, I think, espouse the ideals of what was going on at the time in like really, I think, natural dialogue that made sense. I didn't really have an episode I disliked.
Yeah.
I did like the Sarah Paulson episode at the end, when we actually get to the women's conference, the
Oh
largest
yeah.
gathering of women in America at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And along those lines, I thought Kaylee Carter, who I really liked in Private Life, she played Pamela, another fictional character, and
Mm-hmm.
I think Pamela and Alice together, I guess in a sense they're like audience avatars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the purpose of Alice is to present us with how the Phyllis Schlafly fight helped realign the political parties and
Yeah.
make the modern conservative movement we know today. She kind of points out some of the tactics that are very familiar to us now in terms of misrepresenting facts
Mm-hmm.
and just basically saying stuff that's not true and really doubling down on rhetoric first and foremost. A lot of things that are very familiar to us at this point, and you see Alice kind of raising an eyebrow to this, cozying up to white supremacists or
Mm-hmm.
other undesirable people because, well, they'll still help your cause if you just let them do their thing out of your control, kind of thing. I really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
you get a lot of like Jesse Helms is in the background of this show. That was a straight up segregationist senator from, I believe, South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, right? And in the end, you get Paul Manafort and Roger Stone showing up, which is what, like, I believe the only cameo that Davi Waller said she wasn't able to verify actually happening. Like she couldn't
Mm.
confirm that Phyllis Schlafly met them, but they were on the Reagan campaign, so it might have been plausible. Every other cameo evidently was sourced,
Pretty
and
crazy.
yeah, so I think that there's a lot here. I've been recommending it to people. I think it was really impressive.
Yeah. No, I can't speak highly enough of this show. I think this is a total triumph for FX on Hulu, and definitely a show that I think I would want to rewatch, because I feel like there's so many little aspects of it that you can go back and catch
Right.
little things again. So
I mean,
uh,
and there's people that just kind of pop in, right? Like Elizabeth Banks has a relatively small presence on the show, as was it Jill
mhm.
Rucklehouse, I believe his name is, and
Yep.
Nacy Nash is Flo Kennedy. She's just kind of in the
Hmm.
background of a few episodes, but there's so many important figures that we just get a little bit of a taste of, but that's because this was a show that was so, so widespread, and Rose Byrne actually also really impressed me. She's someone I've always really liked,
Hmm.
but never really was wowed by before. She's just been good generally for a while now. I thought she was really nailed like the Gloria Steinem
Yeah.
cadence, and obviously the hair was so perfect.
Hmm.
So Yeah, man. Also, shout out the term "libbers." That always made me laugh. Such a
Yeah.
uh, uh, product of the time, I guess.
Yeah. It's it was definitely I don't know, enlightening, but also scary to see that cycle and the way that the messaging was so similar to certain messaging that
Yep.
we see today. Yeah, on a weekend, which we already kind of prefaced, where things were already pretty heavy, that final episode, those final couple episodes I watched this weekend, when there it really was portraying that message kind of coming to light and taking shape, I was just like, oh, man, it's just like I need a bit of a palate cleanser.